Nikolai Vasilievich Gogol, the trickster who rewired Russian letters. Nikolai Vasilievich Gogol was born on the 1st of April 1809 in Sorochyntsi near Poltava in present-day Ukraine, then part of the Russian Empire. His father, Vasily, was a minor landowner who wrote comic plays in Ukrainian, filling their home with amateur theatricals, folk songs, and a taste for the absurd. From childhood, Gogol was steeped in Ukrainian folklore, stories of witches, devils, drowned maidens, and wandering spirits. The melodic cadences of priests and village storytellers honed his ear for voices, rhythms, and the comic undertow of everyday speech. In 1828, he traveled to St. Petersburg seeking fame, fortune, and literary success, but instead found a dreary clerkship and harsh reviews of his first published poem. Embarrassed, he bought and burned the unsold copies, a dramatic gesture that would foreshadow later struggles with drafts, manuscripts, and self-belief. His breakthrough arrived with Evenings on a Farm near Dikanka, 1831 to 1832, stories rooted in Ukrainian legend yet sharpened by ironic humor and sly psychological insight. Suddenly famous, Gogol moved among literary circles that included Alexander Pushkin, whose encouragement provided ideas for future masterpieces. Throughout the 1830s and 1840s, he roamed Germany, Italy, and Switzerland, writing and rewriting while battling poor health, debts, and spiritual insecurity. Works like The Government Inspector and Dead Souls confirmed him as a satirist of bureaucracy and a chronicler of moral decay, but their laughter ran dark, exposing social cruelty without offering reformist certainties. His final years were marked by religious anxieties and creative paralysis. In 1852, he burned the second volume of Dead Souls during a crisis of faith, convinced it was spiritually harmful. He died a few days later in Moscow, aged 38, after prolonged fasting and medical mismanagement, leaving behind brilliance, fragments, mysteries, and a lineage of writers who felt his shadow. Gogol occupies an unusually complex position in Russian literature, both foundational and destabilizing, both comic and tragic. He stands at the crossroads where romantic fascination with folklore meets the emerging hunger for social realism, yet he refuses to fit neatly into either category. Critics often see him as the hinge on which 19th-century Russian prose swings open, letting in a breeze equal parts laughter and rot. What Gogol contributed first was a new way of seeing. Earlier Russian literature could be moralising or sentimental, but Gogol exposed the grotesque beneath polite surfaces. In The Government Inspector, corrupt officials collapse into panic when confronted with a rumor of scrutiny, and their fear becomes funhouse comedy. Yet the comedy stings, because the world it reflects is recognizably bureaucratic, petty, and self-serving. Gogol made readers laugh, not to relieve pressure, but to make them uncomfortable with their own amusement. His short fiction sharpened this method. The Nose and the Overcoat are absurd yet painfully direct, dramatizing the humiliations inflicted by hierarchy and indifference. The surreal events, an officer's nose wandering St. Petersburg in full uniform, or a clerk destroyed by the theft of his coat, are not decorative flourishes. Instead, they function as metaphors made flesh, allowing readers to grasp what cannot be stated plainly, that dehumanization corrodes the soul long before bodies die. Fyodor Dostoevsky famously declared, "We all came out of Gogol's Overcoat," acknowledging the story as the starting point of Russian psychological realism. Gogol's religious turn complicates his standing. Selected passages from correspondence with friends alienated his admirers by advocating obedience to church and czar at a moment when critics expected sharper social critique. Yet even this retreat highlights his importance. Russian literature would later wrestle repeatedly with the tension between spiritual yearning and socio-political engagement, from Tolstoy's moral sermons to Solzhenitsyn's dissidence. Gogol pioneered the struggle. His influence echoes not only in the big names of Russian literature, but also in the aesthetic DNA of Russian modernism. Mikhail Bulgakov's satirical phantasmagoria, Daniel Karm's absurdism, and the postmodern playfulness of Victor Pelevin all draw from Gogol's marriage of the bizarre with the everyday. He legitimized the grotesque as a tool for truth-telling, demonstrating that exaggeration can reveal reality where sober description falters. To read Gogol today is to encounter a voice that refuses resolution. He is the jester whose jokes leave bruises, the moralist who mocks himself before others can, the realist who insists that the irrational lies at the heart of experience. Russian literature without Gogol might still have reached greatness, but not with the same nervous laughter, metaphysical dread, or moral ambiguity. He opened the door to a literature that interrogates not only society but the self, and he left it permanently ajar.